Finding the right valuation company for your reverse mortgage appraisals is key. Now, one of the most trusted teams in reverse appraisals is back with a new name, Atlas Valuation. To learn more, visit atlasvms.com or call or click on the banner below this video. Partner with Atlas today.
No, some of the people I spoke to in our industry, especially the ones that are independent operators. Right?
Sure.
So you've got the man or woman out there who's a reverse mortgage professional,
right?
And their clients are calling them, and the good ones are in contact all the time, right?
Right.
I've heard from them time and time again. I just have a really difficult time being an independent loan officer,
right?
To turn that phone off. I care about my client. Two,
Correct.
I don't want them to be frustrated.
Correct.
Three, I don't want to lose the deal, right?
Correct.
Because that's money you lost. So
exactly.
I think there's probably some creative ways they can schedule around that.
Absolutely. In those sort of circumstances, I've encouraged different clients at times to think about, okay, so maybe you don't feel like you can go for a whole week without checking your email or checking your voicemail, but could you for a week check your email once a day and check your voicemail once a day?
There you go.
Right? So you set aside a time, right? I'm on vacation, and I can't, in that circumstance, I cannot completely disconnect.
Right.
But what I am going to do is I'm going to check just once a day for a half an hour, right?
Yes.
How long does it take to respond to the critical emails? That's the other thing in this process is the ability to prioritize and sort through what's an emergency and what isn't.
Absolutely. No, that's huge.
Yeah.
I've seen that before, and they call the blackberries crackberries for a reason, because we got addicted, right?
We did.
To be like, and one of the things that I've told folks is the time block, and here on Friday's Food for Thought, I say, listen, turn off your email, and then you can even have an autoresponder that says, I check my email at these times.
Exactly.
Or check your other messages. But one thing that was really valuable, Steve, when I was working as a loan officer, is I told all my clients, listen, I'm going to call you on Tuesdays and Fridays with an update of what's going on with your loan application. So they didn't have to keep calling, and it really reduced the incoming phone volume.
Perfect example.
And so they knew. It's like,
perfect example
these days, and then took care of it.
And that's a really great example of how, in this process of figuring out how to create the balance of flow for the tank, a part of what you're doing there is you're not just only managing the inputs, you're actually managing the way the output is flowing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not I'm available 24/7.
Right.
These are the times that I promise you I'm going to get back to you. Right?
Yeah.
And then as you're consistent with that, then they know they can depend on that. Right. Then when it's a Thursday, they're not freaking out because they know you're gonna call them tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or it can wait.
Exactly.
It can wait. He's going to call me. It's Thursday. He's going to call me tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's a bit. It was interesting because most people are pretty understanding. I think that there's a professional standard. You get a voice message, you should return it within 24 hours.
Sure.
Generally speaking.
Yeah.
So I had a gentleman tell me that this client called, and because he got voicemail, he was just irate.
Oh.
But the funny thing is, he called him back, and he wasn't available immediately. So I'm like, oh, irony of ironies.
Turnaround is fair play, baby.
Yeah, right. But I think that's so true. So, what are I like these ideas of kind of the small ways to recharge your tank. What are some of the leakages that we can have where we can start? So I'm filling my tank, right?
Yep.
Like this morning, I walked my favorite area, Lima Ranch.
Perfect.
And had my little moment of Zen peace.
Awesome. I love it. Yep.
But there's some stuff leaking out every now and then.
You're right.
What are those things?
You're right. So the things that tend to, those are the things that I call they can yank the plug out of the bottom of the tank and they start to drain, right? You're not pouring, it's leaking. I like
my Camelback.
Yeah, exactly, right. Okay. Exactly right. Those are the kind of things where I need to think about if I'm constantly being asked to do things that aren't a part of my strength, or that there's somebody else who is a teammate and they're not carrying their weight. And then somehow I feel like it's my responsibility to fill in the gap for them. Mm-hmm. Well, I understand to a certain degree, I know we need to get this stuff done with this client, but if I'm constantly rescuing another teammate, that becomes a source of leaking for me. And it's actually not helpful to them because it's not it's not giving them the responsibility to take care of themselves either.
Right. They're not getting that feedback.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's an example of something where I have this other leadership person I listen to. They talk about it from, the language that I use with clients is, what's mine to control and what isn't mine to control?
That's a huge tenet of Stoicism, right?
Totally, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm able to focus on what I have control over,
Yep.
and I'm not trying to help you with what is yours to control,
Right.
now I'm helping to mitigate the leaking that can happen in that regard, right?
That's so true.
Oh, man.
I mean,
and it's also hard as heck, isn't it?
It is. The dichotomy of control. I was sharing with my best friend this situation where there was a timeline, and if it doesn't happen,
Right.
a bunch of money's lost. And so I have to put my trust in this person because I'm not involved in the process,
Yep.
that they're going to follow through,
Right.
even though things haven't gone so great so far. So I told my buddy, I said, listen, I could get all bent about this, but the dichotomy of control says I only focus on things I have influence or control over.
Exactly.
And that's really tough.
It is.
But it sure helps when you can do it.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the phrases I use with a lot of clients is the list of what I actually have control over is very short, and everything on the list is connected to the words I, me, or my, right? My reactions, my
Yeah.
responses, myself, my thoughts, right, all those things.
I was reading this morning Epictetus. It's not things that upset us,
Right.
but our judgments about things.
It's
and that's
very
so true.
right?
It's not the thing itself. It's just
Correct.
how I process
It's
it.
the story I tell myself about what the input is that's coming to me.
The story we tell ourselves.
Because the truth is that's
Yeah.
another source that can be a real source of leaking for us in this process of this tank. Because
Yeah.
if I'm constantly telling myself a negative story
Right.
about the input, about the facts that are coming, and I'm jumping to all kinds of conclusions,
Yes.
that can be incredibly draining.
Yeah.
But if I can be really truthful with myself about, okay, what do I actually, this is another tool I use with my clients, what do I actually know?
Yep.
Like just the facts, ma'am, right?
Yeah.
Like just
Joe Friday.
literally
Yeah.
what are the basic facts? And if I can get clear on that, and I'm not going to turn that into some sort of a story of assumption,
Right.
now I'm helping to also mitigate one of those big leak factors as well.
That is a huge leak, and a close friend of mine who happens to be a therapist, professional psychologist, he says, one of the tools he uses is learn to be your best friend. And so,
so great.
you mess up, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm really good at.
Yeah, sure.
So there's plenty of times during the day.
It's called being human, right?
Being human, right? But oftentimes I can find myself where I get really frustrated with myself.
Sure.
It's just like,
Yeah.
And it's like, but if my best friend did that, I'd be like, hey, bro,
Right.
no problem, man.
So good.
It happens. But why don't we tell that to ourselves?
It's really true.
And that's a leakage.
We're almost always our own worst critic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so true. Well, any other ways that we can better keep that tank full?
Well, I'll play off of that last one
Yeah.
and say I have another friend who she talks about that perspective as I have to learn to be able to give myself grace.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy for me, right? Think about pouring that out from that tank.
Yeah.
It's really easy for me to give grace to the people who are around me, like if they're my best friend or
Sure.
whatever. My clients,
Yeah.
right? Like, I get it. But how do I turn that this direction?
Yeah.
And be willing to give myself grace in the process. And sometimes the tool for me in that is to go, okay, well, guess what? Welcome to humanity. Did
Yeah.
you expect to be perfect? I don't
Right.
I don't know anybody that meets that measurement, right?
Yeah.
Like we're all human. We all make mistakes at times. And so the ability to give ourselves grace in that process is another way I think we can
Huge.
help address some of that leakage.
Kind of like a water cycle, right?
Yeah, exactly,
If
right.
if it was always raining and there was never evaporation, we'd be dried out.
Yeah, which is
Yeah.
a part of the reason why I reference this as the idea of the balance of flow, because
Yeah, flow.
it's about dealing with the outflow, whether that's us giving
Yep.
intentionally or managing the leaking, and figuring out how do I make sure that I'm having the inputs that continue to refill it and make sure that isn't getting too low. So
So true.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey, thank you, Stephen.
You're welcome. Yeah. So
Well,
good to
folks,
be
that
with
wraps up a great episode of Friday's Food for Thought. And again, we're happy to have Dr. Stephen Campbell with us. We are going to have his information as we have on his previous segments, so you can reach out and talk to him if you'd like him to interact with your organization, your executives, or staff. And don't forget, if you could share this video on LinkedIn, we just want to thank you in advance. There's all sorts of good stuff out there, and I think this definitely is in that category where your connections can benefit. Don't forget, we have a YouTube channel as well, so we'd love to have you subscribe and hit that notification bell. Have a great week, and we'll see you here next Friday for more
Thank
Food
you.
for Thought. Thank you, Stephen.
Yeah.
Finding the right valuation company for your reverse mortgage appraisals is key. Now, one of the most trusted teams in reverse appraisals is back with a new name, Atlas Valuation. To learn more, visit atlasvms.com or call or click on the banner below this video. Partner with Atlas today.